What's up, everybody? We're out here in the shop tonight. It's Tuesday night. We've been running the RC cars a little bit. Billy went and got an RC car. It's a 6-scale stadium truck, and he run the battery dead nat. Now he's outside roosting on that freaking razor. Huh?
Your turn.
It's my turn. You guys froze.
No, it ain't that bad.
It looks pretty damn bad out there. It's cold as shit out there.
Well, when you're ripping, you ain't feeling it.
All right, so we're going to do a little video tonight covering Billy's ignition system. We'll probably get to that after dinner. The boy's been out there raising all kinds of hell in that razor.
Just trying to teach Billy how to drift. Oh, yeah. Counter steer Tommy.
Is that his new nickname?
Yeah. We need to pull up the counter steer.
Oh, that's bad. Welcome back. Out here in the shop tonight, and we're getting ready for dig or die this weekend. I think we're headed down Thursday morning, Thursday afternoon. Anyway, we're headed to North Carolina, Rockingham, for dig or die, and doing a little maintenance on the truck and making some decisions on tires and things of that nature. I think we're going to go to Jegs tomorrow morning and go get some tires mounted, some fresh Hoosiers, because the surface down there is really, really bad. Anyway, tomorrow we'll be out here working on the truck some more, putting the tires on, and might make a few little tweaks here and there. But anyway, tonight what I want to do is answer some questions that have been asked of us, both on Billy's channel and on my channel, and in messages and comments and things of that nature. And people are interested in the ignition system. Now, before we get into this, I want to preface this and tell you that I am not encouraging anyone to do what we do, okay? I am not saying that we have the best stuff. I'm not saying that the way we do it is the best way. I'm not even saying it's the right way. I'm just simply going through the truck and explaining the ignition system and a little bit of the fuel system and how we set this truck up to street race and no prep race and things of that nature. This is in no way, shape, or form meant to be a video saying that what we do is the best way and it's the only way and we do it better than anybody else. No, I'm not saying that at all. I don't want anyone to take it that way, okay? So, there's been a lot of questions about the ignition system and the boost controller and the way we pull timing and some questions about the carburetor. So we're going to dive into some of that right now. So Junebug, let's tell everybody first. We'll start with the ignition box. What ignition box are we using?
So we're using an MSD 6530 part number ignition box. It's a programmable 6AL2. It costs $407 at Jegs, and you can get it, and they've had it in stock. I guarantee it. So.
Okay, so where is this box mounted?
It's in the glove box right here. That's it.
So, right, remember what I told you guys when I said how we do it and what we do? We're not encouraging anyone else to do what we do. But this is the ignition box. I think it's two-side taped mounted back when the glove box used to be clean. And it's just mounted here in the glove box. And you'll see right here, this is a 3-bar MSD map sensor. It just simply plugs right in to the 6AL2 programmable box. I don't know if you can see the part number on that. I can't get it turned there, but maybe you can.
23131.
Okay, so 23131. It's just a simple 3-bar map sensor, and it has a vacuum line right here. That's the vacuum line that goes up to the vacuum pod on the intake manifold. And you'll see here, I'll get into this later, and I think I've already covered this once, but you'll see here that we've tied into the map sensor with a 5-volt lead wire that goes back to tell the Aeromotive 10-gallon per minute brushless fuel pump when to increase fuel pressure. That's another thing we'll get into tonight for a few minutes. But
For now, we'll stay ignition.
Yeah, for right now, we're
So
staying
this
ignition.
is how I connect to the box. This is my
USB cable.
Yeah, it's USB on one end, and it's this old ass style from 1972. It plugs in here. If you turn it the right way. There, it's plugged in.
Okay.
Now I gotta turn the key on.
All right. Go ahead, turn the key on.
Turn
The
my
LED
key on.
flashes twice.
Yep.
All the CD players on.
Yeah, it's
Well
on
done.
demo mode. It's doing its thing.
Okay.
Pretty sure somebody got that out of an advanced auto. All right, so this is what it looks like when you open your MSD graph view. It's connected to the box now, and this is the boost retard curve that I'm running in the truck right now. Basically what this is doing is it's sensing your map. It's connected to the map sensor, and when the map sensor sees certain amounts of boost, it pulls certain amounts of timing based on what I've told it on these dots on this curve.
And you just drag the dots to program your...
Yeah. So on this, say this is 13.5, 14. So 14 is where it's at. That's the atmospheric pressure, I guess is what you call that. Something like that.
So 14 is basically 0.
14 is 0. That's no boost, no vacuum. That's just like 0. So I don't pull any timing until, as you can see, out here at about 20, 19.5, 20.5. I'm
So it's
pulling
like
1.5
4.5 pounds. That's like 4.5 pounds of boost.
Yeah, 4.5, 5 pounds of boost. I start pulling timing, and I'm pulling 2.3, 3.1, 3.8. So a little bit less than a pound of boost
A
per
degree per pound.
Yeah, 7, 7.9. So it really depends. As I go through the curve, I try to give it a little bit more timing through the lower boost level, then I kind of bring it down harder, pull more timing, and then I
So
kind of level it out.
You're being very, very gentle on this thing. Being on methanol, I don't...
Yeah, on methanol, you really don't even have to pull
A lot.
10 degrees of timing, honestly. Like, I know people that pull only 5 degrees of timing on 30 pounds of boost with meth, but we're really conservative with this thing. So, as you can see here, that's 34. So, minus 14, that's 20 pounds of boost, and that's 12 degrees of timing being pulled for 20 pounds of boost. So that's really conservative, honestly. Now on E85, that's, you know, on the edge, but on methanol, it's pretty conservative.
So real quick, let's jump into the launch retard section on this thing and explain to everybody what you do as far as pulling timing on the launch. And do you pull timing to get them to spool up? I mean, to spool the turbos?
No, I don't pull any timing, because what it does is when you pull timing as you're trying to build boost, it'll make it lazy. Once you get on the two-step, once you actually get to your target RPM and you pull timing and it starts popping, it'll build more boost, but to get there it takes it a hell of a lot longer.
Right.
So if you're concerned with how slow the truck comes up on the two-step and you don't want to pull any timing, if you had a Holly system or something like that, you could actually raise the timing and then drop it once it gets to target RPM, but we can't do that, so we just kind of leave the timing alone until it launches.
Okay. Let's show them what we get into here on the screen.
All right, so this bar over here is the data editor, and we have, the first thing you have is your burnout RPM. We don't use that, set it to 12,000. Your maximum RPM, rev limiter is 8,700. Your launch RPM, 3,400. If I'm on the street and it's virgin, I typically launch at 3,400 to 3,500, maybe even 3,600 RPM if it's really good. And it's very critical when you're launching. You have to know how much boost each set RPM makes. So 3,400 RPM for me makes about 1 to 2 pounds of boost, depending on how long I sit there. Now 3,600 might build 5 pounds of boost. So it's a big increase.
So it's very critical to know what RPM gives how much boost on the gate.
Yeah.
This is just on gate.
In the summertime, 3400 when it's hot might not build as much as it does when it's real cold and crisp out. It might build more boost when the air's different. It's all, you got to take everything into consideration. So like typically 3400 is what I launched at this weekend. I will go to, there's a launch retard feature. So this is your retards section. You have your launch. Now you can pull up to 25 degrees of timing, but I never want to do that because I'm afraid it'll start firing on the wrong cylinder because we're using a small distributor, MSD billet.
Yeah, we don't have we don't have a crank trigger.
Yeah.
2, we're not using coil on plug. We'll get to that.
Yep.
3, we're using a very small diameter distributor cap, so you can only pull so much timing before the rotor tries to jump to another post instead of the one you're wanting to go to. That's what you're talking about.
Yep. So for a virgin road, I typically pull 15 degrees of timing, but I don't pull it as soon as it leaves. I wait for it to get out there 0.02 of a second, and then I pull the timing. I let it hit the tire under, the regular timing that it has, 36 degrees, and then at 0.02 seconds, which is probably about a half rotation of the tire, I'll pull that timing and let it soften it a little bit. And you can ramp the timing up to 2.5 seconds. So it's just going to be a flat curve to 2.5 seconds, just a linear curve. You can't kind of go up and down with it. It's got to be a linear curve.
So you're jerking the timing out all at once.
Yep.
At 0.02 of a second.
Yep.
And then you ramp it back in gently to keep it from just knocking the tire off.
Yep.
So you're bringing boost and timing back in on a ramp.
Yep. So this you can pull up to 2.5 seconds is your launch retard. I typically don't pull timing for that long. I'll typically pull for 1.5 seconds. If the road's really bad, I'll pull it for 2 seconds. But usually I don't need to do that. I usually stay about 1.5 seconds.
So just for reference here, that's approximately 60 feet.
Yeah.
After the truck leaves on a street, 140, maybe 130 on a really good street, you're probably not pulling as much timing or any in a 130, 60 foot range.
Yeah.
But if we're on a virgin road, say bare virgin like what we were on this weekend, there's nothing there to get a hold of, and we're just trying to nurse it down the first 60 feet. You'll ramp it out for 1.5 seconds. And just on average, on a bare virgin road, what will this thing 60 foot doing this timing pull?
On a bare virgin road,
nothing there.
Nothing there. Pebbles, rocks, dirt, whatever. 1.5, 155 right in there.
Leaving on the trans brake, turning it loose.
Leaving on the trans brake, 3,400 RPM, pulling timing. We'll leave hard. You don't even have to do a burnout half the time, and it'll do a high 1.5 to. If you do a burnout, it'll probably do a low or a high 1.4 to low 1.5, 60 foot.
Okay.
Just on a bare road.
So that just gives some reference to everybody. When you say you're pulling timing for 1.5 seconds, that's generally going to be about 60 feet out.
Yep. That's really it as far as your adjustability goes. All you've got is a rev limiter, and you got a little launch retard feature, which I'm glad they integrated that in there back in 1998, because we still utilize it today very well.
So this is, in all honesty, guys, this is an entry-level ignition system. Very, very entry-level. I mean, this is like bare bones, bottom of the...
There's no individual cylinder timing. There's none of that. You don't have inputs and outputs to run to separate things. This is all you got.
Yeah.
You got...
But it is very simple, and it's inexpensive, and it does work, but you're very limited on what you can do. Like, we do very well because Billy has made so many passes in this truck, and really the data is in your head, in all honesty.
Honestly, the first year I had it, I didn't even know there was that launch retard feature. So that kind of, that once I figured that out, pulling timing on the hit changed everything for me. you know, as far as street racing.
So that's the ignition box. That's a general tune-up for ignition, retard and things of that nature. Now, I will say that this truck is, you know, it's a small block Chevy. It's about 13.5 to 1 compression, right? It's got a dome piston in it. And I set the initial timing at 36 degrees, and we go from there. And we run an NGK-10 plug, whether it's on methanol or ethanol, either one. When's the last time we put plugs in this? It needs plugs put in it now, doesn't it?
Yeah, we're gonna put plugs in it here before the weekend.
Okay, so tomorrow we'll go ahead and put a new set of plugs in it. But how long has it been since we put plugs? Like, this set of plugs has been in there for how long?
All year.
All year.
Pretty much. Ever since we put it back together, August.
See, we rebuilt this engine in August, and we put it in the truck, and we won that 10 grander, right? At Mags?
That's the new set of plugs that was in it then.
So when Billy won that $10,000 race up at Magnolia, No Prep Mania, I shared the link tonight because we were actually just watching that video tonight. That was in August of this year, and this truck's had the same set of plugs in it all season since we won that $10,000 race. So, look, as long as you're not doing something stupid, this thing's very low maintenance. I mean, in all honesty.
Boost controller?
Yeah,
That's a whole separate deal.
let's get into the boost controller.
All right, so we're going to show you guys this boost controller that I run. This is the AMS 1000. And now, what I like about this is you can save up to 4 different presets. So I have number 1 is my really good fast preset. Number 2 is faster or slower. Number 3 is like virgin road. Number 4 I usually don't use, but I usually run, you know, my setup 3 is my street tune-up for virgin roads. And you can see I can plot a line graph to add dome pressure to the wastegates. Now I start my graph at 0 on time, 0 boost. This is like a really bad road tune-up. Now about 1 second into the run, I'm adding 2.5 pounds of boost, or 2.5 pounds of dome pressure to the gates. Now the gates have a 5-pound spring, so you gotta take that into consideration.
So you add the 2.5 to whatever the gate is that what you're saying?
Yeah. So basically, 5-pound gate plus 2.5 usually is about 8 pounds of boost. So I'm on 8 pounds of boost at 1 second in the run. We go out to 2 seconds into the run. I'm at about 10 pounds of boost, so about almost 5 pounds of dome pressure. 10 pounds of boost, 2 seconds in the run. Now, as we get closer to high gear, about 2.7 seconds is usually about the time I get into high gear. You notice the ramps start to go up significantly. Now I'm 9 plus 5, I'm 14 pounds of boost right before the shift. And then now, let's go to about 4 seconds into the run, I'm well into high gear. 19 pounds on the dome pressure and 5 pounds on the gate spring. That's usually around 22 pounds of boost right there. And 5 seconds into the run, I'm 25 pounds of dome pressure. That's usually 25 pounds of boost right there at the end of the run. And it
actually should be 30 pounds if you've got 5 on the gate.
Well, actually, as you go up in dome pressure, as you get higher, it's not the same as 1-to-1 ratio.
Oh, okay.
It's all different, and you have to learn the numbers and this number right here, this number of PSI, you can't just add that plus 5, because as you get closer to 30 pounds of boost, it takes more dome pressure.
Probably the reason for that, I'm just going to guess here, is because the way the headers and the wastegates are plumbed in the header collector, there's a lot of back pressure on that wastegate. So as the boost increases and the power increases, the exhaust back pressure increases exponentially. So you have to continue to add more dome pressure as the boost level gets higher.
Exactly. Because say we're at 5.8 seconds into the run and we're adding 25 to the dome, I've got 10 on the scramble, and it might only get me another 3 pounds of boost or 4 pounds of boost.
I got you.
So it all changes based on how much dome pressure you're at.
So you just need to, there's no replacement for seat time.
Yeah, it takes
and
a
testing.
lot of seat time, testing, figuring out what makes what. And we don't have any safeties. We don't have an overboost. We just got to kind of creep up on it and figure it out. It takes a lot of time.
Yeah. So he's got a scramble button in this thing. So if he's in trouble towards the end of the run or something, or if he feels like the truck will take a lot more power, there's a button on the shifter that he can grab. We'll show you that right now.
So if you guys watch this right here, this is my scramble button. If you watch, it adds 7 pounds to the dome. Usually that's good for 4 pounds of boost, probably.
And that's on the shifter. That's the little red button there on the shifter.
Yeah. And 4 pounds of boost, typically that's like another 100 horsepower.
And does it hit
boost
hard? Is it instant like nitrous, or?
It's pretty quick. It comes on pretty quick. It's not quite like nitrous, but it's there. It's when you need it. It's really there. Now also, if you go into this, you have a scramble down option. You can make it take boost away. You have a launch feature where you can set your desired target PSI on your launch. That's a whole nother thing. I usually leave on gate pressure on the street, but if I'm at the track, sometimes I'll leave on 10 pounds of boost and I'll add a few pounds to the gates.
So just let me ask you something. How much were you leaving on when you ran Eric Mann's in that 10 grander when it did that big wheelie that carried the front wheels, about 300 feet?
I was leaving on about 10 pounds of boost in that run because I added 4 PSI to the dome. Now here's another thing that we haven't even dived into yet. This is another piece of the puzzle down here.
Oh yeah.
So this is my Hughes Performance dump valve controller, and this is all time based, and I have 2 stages of dump valves to loosen up the converter effectively. This is how you go in here. It's pretty much like the boost controller. You got a start time, start percentage, end time, end percentage, and usually I run on the street. I'll start it at 1/10 of a second out, 100%, so that's wide open, and then I'll end it at 2.8. That's right on the shift. So after it shifts, I don't want it softening the converter up because I can throw power at it once it shifts. But through low gear, I like to loosen the converter a bit. So that's just dump 1. Then you have dump 2. Basically the same, 2.9 seconds out. And these work really good because they'll effectively loosen the converter up about 800 to 1,000 RPM. If you don't run these, it'll really tighten the converter up. Like if I'm on a track or something that's prepped, I won't have to run these, but it's a good way if you're street racing. You can effectively loosen the converter up a little bit using these.
So basically what you're saying is at any given time, you've got one of 3 different stators in this truck, depending on whether you run without a dump valve open, whether you run with just one dump valve open, or if you turn them both on. You basically have a little bit of leeway there where you're basically changing. It'd be like changing a stator,
yeah,
or a fin angle, and it does that by cavitating fluid pressure to the converter.
Yeah.
It just starves the converter for a little bit of the circuit oil feed, and effectively just loosens the converter as you tell it to. And you can, it's almost like a nitrous controller, a progressive nitrous controller, only you're progressively adding more and more charged circuit fluid to the converter after you've starved it. Am I right?
Yep. And this works good for cars that have a low, you know, not a lot of cubic inches, but a big turbo, and you're trying to spool up.
You can open both of them.
You can open both of them, and it'll make it so you can get up on the trans brake and get to your target RPM a lot quicker. I don't have any trouble with that because I have a lot of cubic inches, and I'm running 2 fairly small turbos.
So what turbos are on this? They're Precisions?
They're Precision LS series cast wheel 76, 75s. They're not billet ball bearing. They're just that, I think they call it a fluid dynamic bearing or whatever.
Yeah.
They're not anything, you know, crazy fan. I know they're Precision, but they're not. They're their entry level kind of turbo.
So I know this is going to be a lot to take in for some of you guys, but there isn't just one single ingredient to making this truck go down basically any surface. You have timing control, you have boost control, and then we also use dump valves. So those 3 things.
We haven't even dove into suspension and everything.
No, we haven't even.
It's all pieces of the puzzle.
This is all pieces of a massive puzzle. And like, I'll be honest, you know, people ask, why would you give out all this information? Well, the main reason is because we want to give back to the racing community that's been very good to us. That's one reason. 2, it's like if I handed you Vicky's cookbook for her infamous Christmas cookies, and I gave you all the ingredients and I gave you the recipe, right? I can give you the entire recipe book and the ingredients, but you still have to put the thing together. You've still got to bake the cake yourself.
And you still got to drive it.
And you still got to drive it. And luckily, we've got a pretty decent driver, right? All right, so his head's getting big. Let's get back to this. All right, so what we want to do here is give you guys a little bit of an explanation as to how these turbo systems work and how we control the boost. This is our, you know, you've got your exhaust header. These are 1 3/4 tubes into a 3-inch collector, into an elbow. And you can see this pipe that comes up right here. This is a wastegate. What a wastegate does is it is pre-programmed to open and bypass exhaust gases that spin the turbine in the exhaust housing, okay? When the boost pressure sensor, which is right here, when it senses that there is more boost pressure than the programmer is programmed to add to the carb hat, right here, when it senses that there's more boost going to that carb hat than Billy has programmed it to have, this diaphragm opens a valve, just like a valve seat in a cylinder head, okay? And the valve seat is right here. It opens the valve and allows some of this exhaust back pressure to escape out this 2-inch stainless steel line that comes out through the fender right here. Let me show them. Oh, okay. And that is, what do you call that line? What do they call that?
Wastegate dump.
Yeah, the wastegate dump. So this is a wastegate. We have one on each turbo. There's one here and there's one here, okay? And this is your boost sensor right here, and it sends a signal to the boost controller mounted up there that we just saw inside the cab, and tells the boost controller how much boost the carb hat is seeing. And then it opens and closes these wastegates based on the ramp that Billy programs into the controller. Now, how does it know, or how does it do that? We use CO2 to control the wastegates. Now, I'll show you. There's a pair of valves right here on the inner fender. As you can see, we have an expert wiring here in the SRC garage. Nice blue butt connectors. But these are valves that open and close, and they will either add or subtract dome pressure to the wastegates.
Hit the button, let it go off.
No, what I want to show them is this is when I say dome. This is the dome. This big piece here on the wastegate. Okay, this is basically just a diaphragm, like kind of like, well, I wouldn't say carburetor because not a lot of people even understand carburetors anymore. But there's a diaphragm in here that either adds or helps subtract pressure on the valve that opens and closes in here to allow exhaust back pressure out the wastegate dome. So we have CO2 bottle in the truck. I'll show you that. Okay. This is Billy's CO2 bottle. You'll have to bear with me here. And you've got two gauges. Open and close this valve to keep the CO2 from leaking off. But this is your gauge to tell you how much is in the bottle, your pressure in the bottle, and this is the gauge that tells you how much pressure we're actually running total available out to the domes on the wastegates. And you can adjust this right here. We can turn the pressure up or turn the pressure down. Now we're looking at maybe doing away with this and going to a onboard air system because CO2 may become so expensive in the near future, depending on who wins this damned election. It's already been talked about, but they're talking about taxing the hell out of CO2 because it's supposedly it's harmful to the environment. However, they forget somehow that we are all emitting CO2 every time we breathe. Evidently they haven't figured out a way to breathe us or tax us on our breath, but they're going to tax us on CO2 here pretty soon. So we're going to get into that later on, maybe if we buy an onboard air system. But that air pressure, that CO2 air pressure, is applied to the dome here, and that pressure applies to the dome and helps close that valve, shoves pressure on that valve, okay? And then when you remove that dome pressure, the back pressure and exhaust helps to push the valve open, and the exhaust goes out the wastegate dome. Now, we're just kind of winging this thing here tonight, and I'm throwing a lot of information at you, and I'm probably not the best person to have explained to you what we do and how we do it because I'm just not very well spoken sometimes, but I'm doing the best I can, so hang with me here, okay? Okay, so very simple. This is just a standard MSD billet distributor. I don't remember the part number on it. Okay, just a standard billet MSD distributor. We run the distributor locked out, meaning there's no vacuum advance, of course, and there's no mechanical advance. And like I said earlier, we set the ignition timing at 36 degrees, just like a standard small block, naturally aspirated. And you know, like we said earlier, the ignition box pulls the timing. We do not have a crank trigger. We probably should have, but we don't. This, like I said, this is a very entry-level setup, guys. This is nothing spectacular. We run just a standard HVC coil for a 6A box. You see the part number right there. It's a part number 8230 or 8253. I'm sorry, I'm reading it upside down. Just a standard MSD coil, HVC coil. We run Moroso shielded plug wires, Ultra 40s, nothing exotic. And that's pretty much it for the ignition system. You know, like I said, we just run NGK-10 plugs, and I'm not saying that that's the right plug. I'm not saying it's the wrong plug. It's just the plug that we've been running. We could be better, we could be worse, I don't know, you know. I'm not saying that we do things the way you should do them, I'm just showing you what we use. Okay, so we've covered the ignition box. We've covered the 3-bar map sensor that plugs into the 6AL2 box that tells the ignition box how much boost the carb hat is seeing. And then, as Billy showed you, the ignition box pulse timing based on his parameters that he has programmed into the ignition map. Drag and dots deal that he's got going on in there. So we've discussed all that. We've discussed the ignition system, spark plugs, plug wires, the distributor, the ignition box, the coil. Let's dive into some other things here. There's a lot of pieces to this puzzle. Like we said earlier, we use a Aeromotive 10.0. That's a 10 gallon per minute brushless fuel pump. It's expensive, and it's worth the money. Very good pump. Now, we use that because we're on methanol, and methanol uses a lot of fuel. So the pump doesn't just run at one speed. The pump will sit there and run at low speed and produce minimum fuel pressure at an idle. And then as boost increases, the fuel pump motor speed increases. So I showed you a little while ago, there was a wire that I tapped in there to that 3-bar map sensor. That wire goes back to the fuel pump. The fuel pump has 3 wires. Okay, a red, the power, the black is ground, and then there's another wire that goes to the 3-bar map sensor. And that wire is like a 5-volt reference wire, they call it. And as boost increases, the map sensor sends a signal through that wire back to the fuel pump to tell the pump it's time to increase the speed, and then the fuel pressure rises. Let me show you. Okay, there it is. Aeromotive 10.0 brushless fuel pump. Billy, how much was that? How much was that fuel pump? It was expensive.
That pump is $1,800.
So a lot of our stuff is entry level, right? But the fuel pump, I wouldn't say that fuel pump is entry level. So it's an $1,800 fuel pump. Now, we don't necessarily have to have that $1,800 pump if we were just on gas or on ethanol. But on methanol, we have to move a lot of fuel. Now, the reason that we have to increase fuel pressure is because we're using our carburetor, okay? And the carburetor bowls also see boost pressure. Let me show you something. So here's your carburetor bowl. You got a bowl on one end and one on the other, primary and secondary. You've got your carburetor hat. Now, when the carburetor sees boost pressure, okay, the bowl vents, which have lines that run up here into the carb hat, I'll get into that some other time. I'm not going to dish into that tonight. But those bowl vents see air pressure, boost pressure inside this carburetor hat, and that boost pressure pressurizes the carburetor bowls, okay? Well, what happens is once you start to get above 5 or 6 pounds of boost, you have to raise the fuel pressure going to the carburetor bowls. Otherwise, the boost pressure tries to shove the fuel back to the tank, okay? So what we do is we run a boost reference fuel pressure regulator right here. I don't know the part number on this Aeromotive. Do you know what it is, Billy?
I don't off the top of my head.
Okay. It's a 4-port or a 5-port Aeromotive fuel pressure regulator, and it has this line right here, okay? Braided line that comes up and goes to this vacuum tank. Basically, it's just a pod for all these different ports. And what that does is when the engine begins to see boost below the carburetor, that boost pressure goes in this line, okay, and adds spring pressure to the boost or to the fuel pressure regulator, and that raises the fuel pressure. We usually set the fuel pressure at about 9 or 10 pounds, okay, initial. So just sitting there idle, and it's got about 9 or 10 pounds of fuel pressure. And then as you start to see boost, okay, this regulator usually adds 1 to 1 pound of fuel pressure to 1 pound of boost. So you're always running 10 pounds more fuel pressure than whatever the boost pressure is in the hat, That way the fuel pressure is always higher than the boost pressure, and the fuel is always coming in the bowl rather than being pushed back to the tank. Now, we'll get into the carburetor another night because it's pretty late tonight, and I don't want to throw so much information out there that everybody just tunes out. I don't want to do that. We'll get into the carburetor another time, but I think that's probably a lot of information for tonight, and it's not even. I'm just giving you the Reader's Digest. Okay, we're just hitting the tips of the iceberg as we skim across the lake here of what it takes to make this thing run. And we've been very fortunate in that I'm halfway decent at understanding carburetors and tuning carburetors, and Junior back there is, I would say, exceptional at driving and tuning the boost controller and the retard ramp and the dump valve controller. That's all in his head. He does every bit of that. I'm hands off on all of that. My job basically is to make sure he's lined up and give feedback on surface conditions, back him up in his tracks, and if a carburetor has a problem or if I hear a problem in the engine, I'm kind of the mechanic behind the deal. I'm very good at troubleshooting, and that's my strong points. But the rest of this deal is entirely on Billy. He tunes the boost controller, he tunes the ignition system, he tunes the dump valve controller, he sets his tire pressure, he sets his shocks. You know, I'll give input here and there, but for the most part, it's all on Junior. He does it all. Now, I know something that I've seen many a time. People ask, when you let off the gas, why does that hood blow off? Or it looks like the hood's gonna blow off.
These right here.
What are those?
These are blow-off valves. They're $49.99 on vsracing.com.
So let me explain, guys, what these are meant to do. These are blow-off valves, and they have vacuum lines that go down to this little vacuum canister, okay? And what these do is when the truck's under high boost or any boost, and you let off the gas pedal and the carburetor blades, throttle blades close, all that boost pressure has to have somewhere to go, okay? Because the turbos don't just stop building boost when you let off the gas. There's a delay there. And if you don't have a blow-off valve,
it would have compressor surge.
It would have compressor surge, and it would tend to want to bend the throttle blades and blow air out the throttle shafts and just kind of wreak havoc. So these valves are set so that when the engine's idling under vacuum, they're open. And then once the vacuum level drops and the throttle blades open, these close and seal off, and that allows the cold side to build pressure into the carburetor hat. So when these things open, there's a lot of air that blows out of there, right?
Yeah.
And the air has to escape, and when the air tries to escape out of the blow-off valves, like I said, guys, I'm not telling you how to do your operation. I'm not telling you that this is the best way. I'm not explaining to you how to do things. I'm not saying that you should do them how we do them. But when we bought Billy's hood, that cowl induction hood that's sitting back there on the back of the truck, when we bought that hood, we were in a hurry to go racing. And the easiest possible way to mount that hood was with these hood pins. And I didn't have time to build brackets, so we just put the hood pins in the original hood hinges.
And I wanted to be able to go back to a bolt-on hood if I ever needed to do drag week.
Right.
And run a stock or a regular hood or a small steel cowl hood that I could run a windshield wiper.
Right.
I wanted to be able to go back.
Like
we didn't get rid of those.
Right. We didn't want to get thrown out of all the streetcar classes.
You gotta have hood hinges, something like that.
Well, I mean, the thing of it is the hood that we have, you can't run the wiper arms because it comes all the way back. You can see it kind of rubs on the windshield a little bit.
And we still do have the windshield wiper motor.
Yeah, the wiper mechanism is still in the cowl. The wiper motor is still there. The factory column is still in the truck. You can twist and turn the turn signal lever and the wiper motor still works. So that stuff's all there in case we ever got into a really good high-paying race that was meant for strictly street cars. We didn't want to get rid of the hood hinges in case we wanted to just put a bolt-on hood on it and put the wipers back on it and get into a street car race at some point.
You never know. I might throw the stock hood back on it, cut a hole in it, and then, you know, run my wipers again.
We might. You never know.
It looked crazy,
But that's why that's why the hood tries to lift when the blow-off valves open. This large plume of air comes out underneath the hood. It lifts the hood up and it escapes. It's kind of ingenious, really.
Yeah. I mean, listen, guys, the hood has been on there for, what, 4 years that way?
Yeah.
I don't think it's going anywhere. I really don't. I mean, it lifts up, but it doesn't really bother me. So chill with the hood.
All right, guys. So that's gonna do it for tonight. We're gonna wrap this thing up. I'm gonna go in and edit this video and start putting it together. But hope everybody had a good Thanksgiving, and if you're headed to Dig or Die, hopefully we see you there. We're gonna try and leave out of here Thursday, and tomorrow we're headed to Jegs, go get another couple sets of tires mounted. And I really feel like we should take 2 sets of rims and tires with us, because if we get into any Mexican action before the race, we don't want to wear out a brand new set of Hoosiers on the street and then try to run $10,000 shootout on used tires. So we'll probably take 2 sets of rims and tires with us. We're going to take them into Jegs tomorrow and get tires mounted. And someday here soon, I'd like to get into a little tire discussion and explain what tires we use when, and tire pressure and burnout technique and things like that. I want to get into that soon. We just haven't had time yet. But you got anything you want to say, Junebug, before I sign off?
Just thank you guys for all the support over the years. I really appreciate it.
Our whole family. You know, it takes all of us, right? Like when we go racing, me, Tommy, and Billy all take turns driving, because a lot of times it's 12 or 13, 14 hours away. And if you think about that, that means all of us have to be able to just jump in the Suburban and go travel. You know, if we all had regular jobs, right, that would not be an option for us to just run and do and go and travel like we want. So it really takes all of us working together for all of us to afford to be able to live and do the things that we're doing. And if it wasn't for Tommy doing the filming work, and Allison helping, and Molly helping, and me helping, and Vicky helping, there's no way we could be doing all this stuff. So we rely on the support from our followers that buy the hats and hoodies and license plates and keychains and posters.
Just
Tommy's
watching the videos.
and just watching the
A
videos.
lot of you guys can't afford merchandise and stuff like that, and that's fine. Just watch the damn videos. That helps more than anything.
Watch, share, hit the like button. All that stuff helps, right? So our family is very, very appreciative of everybody that watches the videos and supports us in any way that you can.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you. See y'all next time.